Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Reconstrucor studio. Welcome to the show. First off, before this episode gets started, a huge thank you to Eddie. Spoiler season is an incredibly busy time for me, and it's really hard for me to keep up. So while I was working on my last episode on the new Simic commander that I'm calling Double Trouble, Eddie was helping me out with this one. So if you haven't seen that one on Adrix and Nev, make sure you check that one out, but probably watch this one first. So on this Eddie-aided quick take, I'm going to be going over Osgir the Reconstructor. And if you saw the thumbnail, you know that this is a Boros commander that is not focused on combat, though there is some kind of a combat thing in there, but we'll get to it. But it is a Boros commander that is focused on generating card advantage in a really cool way. And remember, with these quick takes, I might make some mistakes because I'm trying to do them quickly, but as efficiently as I can. And also remember that if there are some mistakes, it's probably Eddie's fault. Just kidding, Eddie sent over some awesome cards for me to highlight. And with all that said, let's jump into it. So Osgir the Reconstructor is a 4/4 giant artificer with vigilance that costs 2 red-white. He has pay 1, sacrifice an artifact, target creature you control gets +2/+0 until end of turn. He also has pay X and tap him, exile an artifact card with mana value X from your graveyard, create 2 tokens that are copies of the exiled card, activate only as a sorcery. So let's break this commander down because there's actually a decent amount going on. First off, if you're like me and you saw the picture the other day, you might have thought this was a dwarf, and like me, you're also wrong. So my apologies to all you DePaula fans out there. Regardless, these abilities have some fantastic synergy to them. Paying to sacrifice an artifact to pump a creature really isn't all that impactful. And without that other ability, yeah, this would probably seem like just your typical combat-focused Boros commander. But again, essentially being an artifact sacrifice outlet works perfectly with that second ability. Essentially, you pay 1 to sacrifice an artifact, then you pay that artifact's mana cost, and then you tap Osgir and you get 2 copies of that artifact. Now, you can only make those copies at sorcery speed, but still, this can be incredibly powerful and can generate you a lot of value throughout the game. So let's jump into some cards to consider for this Boros artifact value generating engine. To start things off, Eddie pointed out some fantastic cards to highlight with Ancient Den, Great Furnace, and Darksteel Citadel. Each of these are artifact lands, and though they might not seem like much, they work amazingly with Osgir. Essentially, you put one of these in play, you tap it for a mana, you use that mana to sacrifice it thanks to Osgir, and then you tap Osgir for free because each of these have a mana cost of 0, and you get 2 copies of them back. And who says Boros can't ramp? You just kind of have to do it in an incredibly convoluted way, but still, yeah, that's ramp. Now instead of your 1 land, you've got 2, and you can use that mana from them right away. And if you happen to have a free sacrifice outlet for your artifacts, you're generating 3 mana from just doing all this. 1 mana for Osgir's sacrifice ability is not that bad, but again, a free one is gonna be better. And of course, we couldn't talk about ramp and Boros without talking about mana rocks like Soul Ring and Gilded Lotus. Incredibly efficient mana rocks like these are even more efficient with Osgir. Again, let's just say for argument's sake that you don't have a free sacrifice outlet out there. You pay 1 to put your Soul Ring down and you tap it for 2. You use 1 of that mana to sacrifice it with Osgir and use the other mana to tap Osgir and then exile it from your graveyard. Now you get 2 copies of Soul Ring coming to play untapped and you can tap them each for 2. So yeah, you've got 4 mana now instead. Eat your heart out, Mana Vault. Now obviously most mana rocks aren't anywhere near as efficient as Soul Ring. But still, Osgir is able to ramp you at an incredible rate by getting you basically twice as many mana rocks in play. Again, if Gilded Lotus is already in play, you're essentially gaining mana by sacrificing it and activating your commander. On that turn, it's going to cost you 6 mana in total, but you're getting 9 mana from tapping all your Lotus. But my favorite of these mana rock interactions has got to be Coveted Jewel. When it enters the battlefield, you draw 3 cards and you can tap it to add 3 mana of any one color. But when one or more creatures an opponent controls attack you and aren't blocked, that player draws 3 cards and gains control of Coveted Jewel, untap it. So most of the time, this can be a high risk, high reward play. A mana rock that draws you 3 cards and can tap for 3 for just 6 mana is a really good deal. But if an opponent hits you, they just stole your ramp and drew some cards. But Osgir doesn't let that happen though, because if an opponent attacks you trying to steal this, you can just sacrifice it in response. As long as you've got 1 mana up and your commander in play, it's gone. And then next turn you activate Osgir for 6 mana, essentially get your mana back, and you draw 6 cards. And again, if your opponents want to attack you to try to steal them, you just say goodbye. Though that goodbye would be permanent because again the original is exiled, it would still be well worth all those cards that you drew and all the mana that you got access to. So again, there's a lot of really cool things that you can do with this commander, including getting value out of something that usually would be a high risk, high reward play. Again, with this commander and the right artifacts, you can get an incredible amount of card advantage. For example, Mishra's Bauble is a simple artifact that just costs 0. It has tap, sacrifice it, look at the top card of target player's library, draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. So this is essentially a free delayed draw. And you don't even have to actually pay Osgir to sacrifice it for you. And you don't even have to pay for Osgir's other activation because again, the mana cost is 0. So you just tap Osgir, exile this, and get 2 copies of it, and congratulations, you're going to be drawing 2 more cards. So for exactly 0 mana, you just drew 3 cards. Again, those are delayed draws, but you're still getting them, you know what I mean. And other artifacts with ETB draws or LTB draws can also be great in this deck, especially one like Ichor Wellspring, which has both. It's an artifact for 2, and when it enters the battlefield or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you draw a card. So you pay 2 mana, this comes into play, you pay 1 mana, you sacrifice it, you just drew 2 cards for 3 mana. You pay 2 to exile with your commander, you get 2 copies of it, you get 2 ETBs, you draw 2 more cards. Then for 2 more mana, you sacrifice each of those copies, and congratulations, you somehow just drew 6 cards. In Boros, from a singular card. Yeah, this commander can not only ramp you, but also give you incredible card advantage. And it can also give you some more consistent card advantage with something like Tome of Legends. Tome of Legends comes into play with a page counter on it, and then whenever your commander enters the battlefield or attacks, you get another page counter on it. By paying 1, you can tap to remove a page counter from it to draw a card. So keep in mind that your commander does have Vigilance, and if you get 2 of these in play, that's going to be double the draw. But of course, we're not done with our value generation quite yet. So first up, let's talk about some creatures that have some ETBs or LTBs, and of course we're going to start off with Solemn Simulacrum. When it enters the battlefield, you can search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle your library, and when it dies, you may draw a card. So again, having a sacrifice outlet for Solemn Simulacrum makes it a lot better, and being able to exile it and get extra copies of it makes it really good. So in total, you're going to ramp by 3 lands and also draw 3 cards. And of course, you can utilize something like a Meteor Golem to blow up things. It has, when it enters the battlefield, destroy target non-land permanent and opponent controls. So exiling it and getting 2 more copies of it and blowing up 2 more things while getting 2 3/3s is a pretty good deal. And of course, you can't really talk about artifacts and ETBs without talking about Mirror Battlesphere. When it enters the battlefield, you create 4 1/1 colorless mirror artifact creature tokens. So you sacrifice it, exile, and get 2 more of these, and congratulations, you are the proud owner of 12 mirror tokens. And then when you attack with your Battlesphere, you can ping your opponent for a ton. There are a ton of great artifacts with ETBs and LTBs, and these are just a few of them to consider. And some other cards to consider come with cards that untap Osgir. Chaining together multiple activations can generate you an absurd amount of value and get you really far ahead of your opponents. So Magerite Stone is a fantastic include. It has pay 1 and tap it to untap target creature that has an activated ability with tap in its cost. And of course, Osgir does have that. And then Sword of the Parents has a lot of text, but the text that we really care about on this is pay 3, you may tap or untap to equip creature. Once this deck gets going, an extra 3 mana to untap Osgir is going to be well worth it for another activation. Again, some of our things even net us mana when we activate Osgir, so we might as well put that mana to good use and get some more things. Another card that you're going to want to consider is Ugin's Nexus. It says if a player would begin an extra turn, that player skips that turn instead. If Ugin's Nexus would be put into a graveyard from the battlefield, instead exile and take an extra turn after this one. So basically this is just a whenever we want, pay 1 mana, sacrifice this with our commander, and get an extra turn. Now, unfortunately, this card does exile itself, so we can't get it back with our commander. But still, getting an extra turn for just 1 mana whenever we want is gonna be well worth it. Now, when it comes to Osgir being in the 99, one commander that might want to consider him is Breya Ethereum Shaper. Breya is all about artifacts and sacrificing them, so getting back some high value artifacts could be huge. And again, you're not just getting them back, you're getting 2 copies of them back. Another potential commander that might want to consider this one is Elsha of the Infinite. Again, an Elsha deck that is focused on artifacts can get a lot of value out of Osgir. Though keep in mind that Elsha decks tend to want to limit their creature cards, but Osgir still might make the cut. And finally, let's talk about some pricey considerations if you're looking to up your budget. Some fantastic untap effects such as Thousand Year Elixir, Thornbite Staff, and Umbral Mantle can be great includes if you got the money for them. Thousand Year Elixir allows you to activate Osgir right away and pay just 1 to untap him. Thornbite Staff gives Osgir whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, untap this creature. So if we've got some artifact creatures to sacrifice, we can get multiple activations in a turn. And then Umbral Mantle has pay 3 and untap, this creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Again, at a certain point, mana definitely isn't going to be an issue with how much we can ramp in this deck, and being able to untap Osgir multiple times in a turn can be incredibly impactful. And speaking of incredibly impactful, let's talk about Anointing Procession in Krark Clan Ironworks. Anointing Procession says, if an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many of those tokens instead. So, yeah, this is going to be good. Whenever you activate Osgir, now you get 4 tokens instead of 2. That's a lot of soul rings and a lot of mana. And then a fantastic artifact sacrifice outlet like Krark Clan Ironworks could be a great pricey addition as well. It says sacrifice an artifact, add colorless colors to your mana pool. So instead of it actually costing us mana to sacrifice our artifacts with our commander, now we actually generate mana with them. So we essentially generate mana to sacrifice an artifact to pay to get more copies of that artifact. Yeah, that can get out of control really quickly. And finally, some pricey additions if you want to lose your friends, or if you want to keep your friends if they're okay with playing against a Stacks player, let's talk about Tanglewire, Smokestack, and Winter Orb. Getting multiple copies of Tanglewire and Smokestack can be very brutal. Not to mention, getting multiple copies of any of these basically makes it harder for your opponents to actually remove them because they've got to remove 2 now instead of 1. But again, do not use these pricey considerations unless your opponents are okay with you playing Stacks. But now it's time for me to give you my final thoughts on this commander. Much like Feather, I am really excited to see them print another Boros commander that is not focused on combat. And not only is it not focused on combat, but it can generate you a ton of value in a lot of different and unique ways. I can see this commander being a popular one, especially in comparison to most Boros commanders. And actually, one more time before this episode ends, thank you again, Eddie, for sending over your suggestions. And again, for everyone watching, if I happen to mess anything up, in the comments below, let Eddie know that he made a mistake. Because we all know that it definitely couldn't have been me. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one.